Okay, then let's turn our attention away from the equity markets. Let's talk about the commodity markets. Manisha Gupta joins us to fill us in with what's going on in that space. Hey, Manisha, good morning.
Hi, Nigel. Morning. And strong gains is what we are seeing in commodities, especially the crude oil prices, where we have seen the U.S. crude now go up to $60 per barrel. We did see a mark of 60.5 in the New York session yesterday. And with that, we are more than 25% up for the U.S. crude oil prices in 2019 till time. Well, the major support comes in from the OPEC and the allies cut, which now account for 45% of global oil output. And that really has led the prices in the premium. Also, when you look at the Iran and Venezuela output, they are just about producing 1 million barrels per day. This is way down from their peak production levels that we saw in the previous year. So that has been supportive. And then it also has to do with the kind of demand estimates that the markets are putting in from Asia and Europe. That continues to support the prices. It has been good going for the metal space as well, especially gold, which is holding above $1,300 per ounce. Well, the dovish Fed statements that we saw yesterday, the weak U.S. dollar, markets do estimate that the global equity markets are overbought, while, of course, they might have still some momentum on the higher side. But at some point in time, they do look stretched, and that in turn also seems to be supporting gold. Apart from that, it is about the uncertainties on global economic growth, the Brexit, the U.S. and China trade talks, and that is keeping the markets invested in precious metals.
All right, Manisha, thanks a lot for joining us and giving us all those details. From commodities markets, let's shift to derivatives markets. And Manglam Malu joins us with the cues from the F&O space.
Well, good morning. So, on Wednesday's trading session, there were feeble moves coming on the frontline index. And that is something that we've seen over the last few weekly options expiries, where the Nifty hasn't moved too much. And that's primarily to enable perhaps some sort of premium eating out there coming back on the frontline indices. But for the month itself, we've seen a sharp move come by on the Nifty. And that's primarily on account of the sort of flows that we're seeing by the FIIs in the cash markets. Nearly 25,000 crores worth purchase in March so far. It's not just the cash markets. There is a fair amount of money being pumped into index futures as well. So the FIIs who started the series with about 51% long exposure have now increased their long exposure to 64%. More money being bet on the fact that the markets are likely to go higher than lower. However, the next week we begin the Nifty options monthly options expiry, or the March series settlement. So let's see how the moves come by there, because the SGX Nifty currently indicates a start above the 11,600 mark, and on Wednesday's trading session, we saw a fair amount of call writing at 11,600. Remember, the previous high has been 11,544, the recent high that we saw. So let's see whether we cross that, and once that is crossed, and once 11,600 is achieved sustainably, is there a case for some more short covering or not? 11,700 call continues to see some writing. 11,760, remember, is where the record high is. So that is something we'll be watching out for. And 11,500, the bulls believe that is a mark that they can hold their fort on. The put sees a fair amount of writing out there. It's going to be stock specific, so let's keep an eye out on individual stocks. In entering the F&O band in the expiry week, we have Adani Power. Coming out of the F&O band, we have stocks like BEML, Just Dial and Reliance Capital. Short covering seen on stocks which saw a big move. We had Indigo, Punjab National Bank and Idea. Idea recovered nearly 14% from lows. And finally, we have some longs unwinding on Z. Remember, Z was the biggest loser on the Nifty in the previous trading session.
Okay, all right, Manglam, thanks so much for that. Well, just want to tell our viewers out there, the SGX Nifty is indicating more or less a flattish start. If we could just pull the SGX Nifty up for you on the screen, take a look at that. It's 11,587. But you pull up the Nifty futures, and that would tell you the real picture, because that's at around 11,550. So actually, we're bracing for ourselves for a start in the green by around 30 points odd. Just thought I'll make that point. Manglam had made it early in the show as well. But Sonal, tell us some of the stocks that we'll be looking at today, owing to brokerage notes.
Absolutely. So I'll start with CLSA they have written on ICICI Prudential. In fact, they have increased the target price to 450 from 430. That is because they're saying protection forms around 45 to 50% of value of new business, and lower volatility will add to re-rating of the stock from these levels. They're also saying there will be some risks, but that is purely on account of competition or because of regulatory tightening. Moving ahead, let's talk about the auto stocks. They will be in focus since the time Maruti had their there is a possibility that Maruti will cut the production by 25%. Credit Suisse has cut the FY 19-21 EPS estimates by 5 to 10%. They've also cut the target price to 6,100 versus 6,800 earlier. But because of this, it's not only the auto ank or auto sector that is getting impacted. CLSA says that the demand headwinds that they're seeing in the auto sector will reel some pressure on Kansai and Aerolac as well. They have actually cut the target price by around 2 to 4%. They've cut the target price to 385 versus 450 earlier. So they are saying these margin pressures will continue because of the weakness that we are seeing in the auto sector. And lastly, aviation stocks, they are in focus again because of the low passenger traffic data that we saw. Citi has written on Interglobe Aviation. They have a sell call with a target price of 1,000 rupees per share. They say that while the company's market share has risen slightly, they do not think that airlines will grapple with cost issues, but they will have to see how the airline actually performs going forth.
Okay, all right. Thanks so much for that, Sonal. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up on Power Breakfast. We'll leave you with some picks of our bullseye contestants.
Sell call in Petronet at the rate 243, place a stop loss at 249 and look for the target from 230. Sell call in Marico at the rate 340, place a stop loss at 345 and look for the target from 325. Sell call in Bhel at the rate 69, place a stop loss at 73 and look for the short term target from 65.
The first pick for the day is a buy on India Bulls Housing Finance. One can initiate long positions for a target price of 770 and maintain a stop loss below 710. The next pick is a buy on KRBL. One can go long in the counter for a target price of 378 and maintain a stop loss below 349. The next pick is a buy on Suntech Realty. One can initiate long positions for a target price of 498 and maintain a stop loss below 460. The last pick for the day is a buy on Rajesh Exports. One can go long in the counter for a target price of 670 and maintain a stop loss below 634.
The first buy recommendation is on Redico. One can buy Redico for a target of 424 with a stop loss of 401. The second buy recommendation is on Dr. Reddy's. One can buy Dr. Reddy's for a target of 2807 with a stop loss of 2732. The third buy recommendation is on Thomas Cook. One can buy Thomas Cook for a target of 233 with a stop loss of 222. And the final buy recommendation is on Pidilite. One can buy Pidilite for a target of 1204 with a stop loss of 1157.